better give me that money.
What up, people? It's all about the money today. Welcome to episode 7 of The Word. As I just drop all that cash on the floor. Welcome, welcome, welcome. The Word is your sales show that actually delivers without being boring. We have fun, but we drop real, live information on selling, marketing, making your number, sales leadership. We bring it all. And to prove that point, today's show is all about making your number in the new information age. And our guest is Aaron the Boss Ross. We're super excited to have him. We'll be talking to him here shortly. But to kick it off, I want to introduce my co-host and badass Kiki B. What's going on, girl?
Hey, everyone. This is going to be a really great show. Aaron Ross is a badass. We all have a lot to learn, whether you're a sales leader or a sales badass yourself. And as always, the Twitter hashtag is #SalesJolt, and we want to get this baby trending, so let's go.
Now, let's do this. Let's just get this one trending. This is a real good one. I'm excited about it. We're going to have some fun. As part of the Word, because we don't like being boring and because it's all about badass information that you can use, but it's fun, because talking heads are easy, right? Everybody can be a talking head. We're not about being a talking head. We always kick off the show with some type of video, some type of photo, or something funny, creative, interesting that we then break down or talk about. So, Kiki, what do we got this week?
This week we have a hilarious video about metrics and just sales managers and what it really points out that we need to align things across the organization. So, 1, 2, ready, go.
Hey Walter, I heard you wanted to see me. Yes, Brad, we need to talk over your phone call metrics. Sure, what is the issue? Well, it appears that your total daily call is at an all-time low. Yes, I'm trying something crazy. Instead of reading off the bullshit scripts, I come up with a personalized reason to be calling each person and developing a meaningful reason for them to be interested. That may sound good, but my research shows that if you do not make 50 calls a day, you will not make your quota. But I am the top revenue producer. That is a numerical fluke, because your number of dials is not high enough to sustain the revenue. So you want me to fake it like the other sales robots? Well, Brad, you seem to be fighting the system. Last week you did not participate in the prospecting blitz, nor did you show interest in the sprint for the donuts. Yeah, I was wasting my time closing deals. That is no excuse for missing the management milestones. You should do what Lenny does. He is our top performer on the matrix chart. Lenny is a total fake. He calls the movie theater 10 times a day to keep his number of dials up. He does not hang up after leaving voicemails so that his call times are longer. He tells you what you want to hear and you fall for it every time. He is my model sales rep and understands how to be successful here at NT Suit Incorporated. So you should get on board and focus more on your metrics. Screw you. I mean, thank you.
Kiki, every time I watch that, it makes me chuckle. It absolutely makes me chuckle. Look, I get it. Metrics are important. Not only are metrics important, data is important. And we're going to be talking about data today. So I'm all about measuring things. But you've got to measure the right things, right, Kiki? I mean, you've got to measure the right things.
Absolutely.
So when you think about the right things, right, you got to be measuring the results first. What are you trying to get done, and how do they correlate, or is it causality? And too often, sales organizations and sales leaders, you spend so much time managing the activity that you lose sight of the big picture. You lose sight of what's important, and you tell salespeople how to do it. So yeah, there's 2 things wrong with other than it being a funny video. There are 2 things wrong inherently with what was going on in that video, what I think the creatives are trying to get across to you. The first one is, as I said earlier, measure the right things, and they have to be aligned with your business. What are you trying to get done? Are following the activities, do they automatically get you to the result? Are they the cause of your result, or do they only correlate? When they only correlate, you shouldn't measure them. You can manage them, you can watch them, you can focus on them, but you can't measure them because that leads you down a rat hole. The second one about that, though, is not everybody does the same thing. When you pick, using this, when you pick cold calling, for instance, and you force people to make a certain amount of calls, what does that say about social media? What does that say about social engagement? What does that say about using email? What about the other tools that allow you to connect and engage with clients and customers? So you've got to let your salespeople develop their own methodology. Give them a path, give them some tools, give them some methodologies that may or may not work, like cold calling, or how many they should make, or what your research has shown, but then let them do it themselves and focus on the metrics that matter, the end results. Anything you want to throw to that, Kiki?
Yeah, I think all too often it's about dials and talk time, and I've seen in real life people get let go from the company I was working at because they were calling dead numbers, they were fudging the stats, and it's easy to look like you're doing something, but the numbers won't follow.
There you go. There is your telltale sign. SVPs, CROs, directors of sales, sales managers, there's your perfect sign. If you have people who are fudging activity numbers, what they're telling you is the activity doesn't work. But they're doing it because you're forcing them to. Because if it worked, if 50 calls was a guarantee for your quota, if 30 calls was a guarantee your quota, they would make them. But it's not a guarantee. So what they're finding is they're making them. It's not getting their job done. It's not helping them reach the number. But they got to make the activity goals. So what do? They fake that shit so you'll get off their ass. So if you see that, cut it out. So I won't say the name of your old company, Kiki, but they got to cut it out. Maybe they should hire me or Aaron to come in and fix that shit.
That's right.
All right. So next, what are we talking about next? Oh, we are going to talk about predictable revenue. We're going to get Aaron going here. But before we do that, I want to set the tone. I want to talk about why, in my opinion, and Aaron, take some notes, brother, because I want to want your thoughts on this, why Aaron's book was so timely and why it's different today than it was before. And as I see it, it breaks down like this. We are on the precipice, or maybe even our first foot into a new age, right? We're coming out of the industrial age and we're moving into the information age. And that has changed everything. Just like at the beginning of the industrial age, when there were salespeople, what did they do? They sold face-to-face. They did events. They carted those little carts around with their wares in the back, or they went door, and then they moved to door and knocked on doors. And sales was face-to-face. And as the telephone became ubiquitous and became common, and mail became common, and photocopies became common, someone said, hey, wait a minute. I don't have to go door to door. I can do this more effectively and more efficiently if I pick up the phone and just call the person. I can get 20 people on the phone in an hour or two as opposed to 3 or 1 in an hour or two if I'm going door to door. So all of a sudden, born is telecommunications. Those people we can't see who call us up all the time is born as the outside sales rep who makes the cold calls and sets up meetings and comes and visits you. Cold calling is born. All that is born. And now we send people mail. We send it through. We said, please send me something in the mail. My first sales job, I cold called and sent shit in the mail. I put a little folder together and I put a little label on that sucker and shipped that shit out. That's what we did, because that was what the new technology provided us. From basically the middle of the 50s, when door-to-door started going like this, through the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and early 2000s with the cold calling and all that. But then it changed again. Information age. We had email. We had social media. We had webinars, we had WebEx, we had all of that stuff that said, wait, and someone said, wait, and that someone is Aaron, said, we could do this differently. We could be even more effective. We could be more efficient, and that's why this is so germane. So from a contextual perspective, as we start talking to Aaron, ask yourself, what has changed between then and now, and is your organization capitalizing on the new changes? Are you leveraging them to be more effective and allow your salespeople to sell more and do more with them? So that's my take on this. Why we're here and why Aaron's book is so pertinent and so germane and why it's so powerful is because it's aligned right with the change from one age to another age. And few people get to experience age changes. We're lucky. My dad was in the industrial age his whole life. We're lucky, so we should jump on it. Jump on it. Kiki, what are your thoughts, girl?
I think you're right. We're at a precipice. It's an opportunity, a unique opportunity that you pointed out, to kind of be the pioneers of this new informational age, and things like this, things like live hangout chats where you can actually look your clients or your potential clients in their digital eyeballs, as Brian Fanzer says. I think it brings another level of connection, and you're no longer limited by proximity. You can find your target market around the world now, so I think it's awesome.
Holla, 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 straight up, you're absolutely true. So rather than us pontificate anymore about the changes in the world, let's bring in the guy who helped articulate how to capitalize on that, and let's blow this up. You want to introduce him?
Yes, sir. We have Aaron, the Boss Ross. I think it's a rarity that you're able to have an intimate hour with Aaron and be able to get your questions answered. So take advantage of it. Hashtag SalesJolt on Twitter. And here is Aaron, the Boss Ross.
Hey, what is up, boss man? How you doing?
I think I'm unmuted now. So hey, morning. Actually, I think that's a new nickname. I don't know if I've heard Aaron the Boss Ross before, but I'm not arguing with it. I'll tell that to my wife and see if it'll stick. But somehow I think she'll probably just laugh at me.
Yeah. That's it. We'll make it stick for you here because it's time.
Yeah,
I like it works.
Yeah, that's right.
So what did you think about my intro? What did you think about that whole idea that going from age to age?
Well, it's interesting. I think that over time the ages are shorter, and so if it took the Industrial Revolution was 100 years, and then the Internet was 20 years, and then SaaS is 10, and so I think we're getting to a point where we're just moving toward a constant age change in its own way, because as everything gets more connected, I don't know, stuff changes faster, and things get noisier. And so a lot of it isn't so much how good are you today, it's like how fast can you learn, how fast can you adapt and get better at whatever's going on. And also be able to sort through the noise of like what's real versus what's just, well, I guess noise. And distraction. And I do think today, one of the best skills for today in the future is going to be able to distinguish, when am I getting when am I doing something new and interesting versus when am I getting distracted?
Interesting. So with that said, what was the precipice for you? How did you say to yourself, okay, shit, I need to do something different at Salesforce? What was the beginnings of the book, and how did you know you needed to do it?
Sure. But before, did you guys actually see this really neat T-shirt I got? So I think, just want to point that out.
Holla!
Yeah. So I think here I probably have to thank you for that. But the Salesforce, in some ways, I worked at Salesforce about 10 years ago, give or take, 2002, 2006, and lots of things have changed, but some things haven't. So at Salesforce, one of the things that has not changed, the same back then, it's the same today, is Salesforce started with small, the first software subscription apps, and a lot of small companies were their early customers, especially in Silicon Valley where there's lots of startups, and it was just easier. And generally, it is always easier to start with smaller companies, smaller deals. And so a lot of Salesforce.com's early business up to, I don't remember how big it was when I started. It might have been already $50 or $100 million. Let's say 50, because it was about 150 people when I started. So I like to say I started early, but not early enough. And so most of the business was from smaller companies, say under a few hundred employees, smaller deals. We hadn't done any. I'm sure we did a few hundred seats, but we hadn't done a 1,000-seat deal. And Salesforce was making an investment to target bigger companies and bigger deals. So that year in 2002 had come out with the first called enterprise product, which before that all they had was the original professional edition, which was the $65 a month. And so they came out with an enterprise product, which was a better fit with customization and blah, blah, blah for bigger companies. And they'd hired a lot of field salespeople, but we didn't have leads for them. Because, again, something which is true then and true now, there's been this idea, even my father, who's been in software since really started, he'd say, people believe, hey, we'll hire these experienced enterprise salespeople. They'll bring in a bunch of relationships and customers from their Rolodex, which honestly doesn't happen. It does, it's pretty rare. So Salesforce hired a bunch of these people. They didn't bring any deals in. Salesforce is getting a ton of inbound leads through word of mouth, but all for small business. And to me it was obvious we needed a way to go out and generate pipeline for this sort of medium and larger company target markets that we weren't getting, and the inbound and the PR and the word of mouth just wasn't penetrating. And so I saw the problem. I didn't know what the solution was, but I said, hey, can I take some time and figure it out? And luckily, I actually had like 4 months, 3 or 4 months to experiment and figure it out. I think I said in the book, the predictable revenue, that I don't know if I said this, but I feel like too when a companies are doing something new, they don't give themselves enough time to really try something and figure it out. It's like you give someone 2 weeks or 30 days, and that would not have worked for us. If I'd only had 30 days, it would have failed. I did need 3 or 4 months to figure out the punchline, which was a way to go out and prospect for deals at companies in a very predictable way that could generate almost as much pipeline as we needed for our field salespeople.
So the first thing I'm hearing there is, okay, everybody noticed, whether you got lucky or by design, you started with the smaller companies first, which makes sense back then too, because I want to say yes, it's easier, and I want to say my company back then in 2002 was on Salesforce, so we were one of your earlier clients. We didn't have the concerns about putting out our stuff in the cloud like the bigger companies. I can only imagine trying to go to Johnson & Johnson or to
no way.
Cisco wasn't big that, and like, hey, put all your shit in the cloud. All those Siebel users, they'd be like, fuck you, I'm not putting my shit in the cloud. Are you kidding?
That's
so
pretty much.
So it was either smart or you figured out, you're like, okay, I know where I'm not getting beat up, so I'll do it. So it's smart, but there was also a cultural element that gave you the time, which no one wants to give anybody anymore, to go figure it out. Is that right?
Yep. So it's like saw the problem. And in fact, this is sort of related to the new book that'll be out next year, but it's like saw the problem, you gave yourself, everything takes longer than you expect, enough time to figure it out. And part of the success was really focusing on nailing a niche. Like, what's the sweet spot where, in this case, it's true for anything, but in this case, where would outbound prospecting work the best? Because Salesforce had 20 or 50 different types of, called verticals, software, finance, manufacturing, but there's really only 2 or 3 that worked really well for outbound, and then just turned it into a system, which took, again, longer than we wanted, but it worked, and once it worked, we could crank it up we could just dial it up, we could multiply it.
So if I steal if I take what you said, tell me if I'm getting this right. Well, the time you put in the front end is an investment that had a much greater return on the back end, but you've got to be willing to make the investment.
Yeah, investment in time and energy and focus. It's not always even just money, but some could be. I think it's.
Because I heard time, investment in time, right? Investment in resources. What I'm hearing is, look, you're not going to get a return right away. You got to take the time to make the people investment, the time investment, structure investment, and let that develop or build that right, and then you'll get the reward, as opposed to make it happen right now. Give me the sale. Give me the sale. Give me the sale.
And I'll give you another example. So the next book. One of the points we make is that if you're starting a company, like a software company, whether subscription or whatever, you got to give yourself 2 years to figure out if it's really going to work or not. You're not 30 days, not 90 days, not 1 year. You need 2 years to figure out, okay, it's working, and is this going to be something that's going to take off in some way and, I don't know, be successful. And so my co-author Jason Lemkin said that he started a company called EchoSign.
I love EchoSign. We use it.
Yeah, he sold it to Adobe. Now that EchoSign as a division is like a $150 million company. Something. And now Jason, of course, has the #1 most popular SaaS community blog called SaaStr. But when he started EchoSign back in 2006, which is about when I met him, he said that after 1 year, he had, I think, 2 co-founders that quit. Because after a year, it was still a struggle. And they felt like, okay, it's not, I don't know, easy enough, or it wasn't taking off the way they wanted. And it took them about 2 years before Jason knew that, okay, this is taking off, and it's sort of a question of now we just need to grow it. And it did take off. And he's seen that with other companies in terms of, again, a lot of it is our expectations can be evil and set us up for failure. Because if we expect something to happen, it's not bad or good that it might take someone 2 years to get a company off the ground, to know that it's going to work out the way they want. That's not slow, it's not fast, it just is what it is. The only problem is if we start to think, okay, well in 6 months, if it's not working, I'm going to quit. And you do that 6 months and then 6 months, and you never put in the time it takes to really get something off the ground. Then you're always, that impatience cuts you off at the knees from whatever the big opportunity could be that you got. So that same thing at Salesforce. It took 4 months for that. Obviously simpler to get a new just process off the ground than a whole company. But I see this time again, whether it's in parenting because I got a lot of kids, or with work, or my wife's business. We have these artificial expectations where there's in my mind you can have a goal, which is I want to have my company do $1 million, or I want to have a company, or I want to make hit quota, and that's useful. And the part where we go wrong is we have an expectation, which is it needs to happen by June, or else there's a problem. We start to judge it rather than saying, okay, I'm trying to hit my quota by June, and if I don't, I failed. Rather than, well, okay, I didn't hit it, so where did I go wrong in this process? Did I not do something? What would I do next time? And look at it as a learning opportunity rather than like a failure.
So I love this. So let's talk more about your new book because I'm excited about it. Is that the premise of the new book? Is this idea of creating patience and letting things develop and being open to pivot? Sort of what's the premise, and walk us through why you felt you wanted to do another book.
Yeah, well, let me start with why I want to do another book was because I've got 7 kids, and we're adopting 2 more, and I need to make a lot of money.
Real quick, time out. Where are they adopted from?
So 2 are still on the way. So 4 will be from China, 1 will be from East LA. And we tried to adopt 2 kids from Ethiopia, but it just didn't work out. So we're not.
Are you? Yes, I'm adopted in 1968 by a white family, dude. So I'm a pioneer in this shit. Like you have any questions, especially if you get kids from Ethiopia, or if one of your kids is mixed, I can help you all day long. I love it. Sure. Pioneer. Seth Levine, by the way, has 2 children from Ethiopia. If you know Seth from Foundry Group, Brad Feld's partner.
Yeah.
Yes, you guys have a lot in common. But anyways, love that. We should have a beer and talk more about it sometime. Yeah. I love it.
Well, so I'm actually it's partly serious but partly jokey. But to me, I think at heart I'm an author. If you look at my blog, I don't blog regularly. So some people, like my partner Jason Lemkin, who you should follow if you're in software, but he's a prolific writer. He writes every week and so on. And some people are great about that. That's not my strength. So I think I'm more of an author, which means I blog. The things I do, it's all to create the next book. So to me, there's also a calling over the last couple of years around, I just felt there was a new book coming. It was time to do a new book. And I found a great co-author to do it with, Jason. He's like the main person I go to, maybe like one of the few people I follow. But the premise of the book, by the title's not finalized. There's a tentative title called The Predictable Revenue Guide to Triple Your Sales. But I think a lot of it really builds on the first book, so Predictable Revenue, and expands on some of those original ideas, plus adds some new ones. But I think so one of the titles, I'll give you 2 possible titles. We're almost right now finalizing. One is from impossible to inevitable, which is the idea that if you have some big goal that feels like you can't do it, but there's a roadmap to starting a company and turning into a fast-growing company. Whether you're trying to go from $500,000 to $1 million, or from $50 million to $200 million, it's a lot of the same principles. That's one. And the other title I like a lot is Truth Equals Money. So it's the idea.
So let's see what our followers think.
Yeah.
It's truth. What is it? Truth versus money.
Truth equals money.
Truth equals money is
one.
One, and then
from impossible to inevitable.
Impossible to inevitable. I'm a fan of number 1. Truth equals money. I love that because what's one of my favorite phrases is confronting reality. I had to leave corporate America because I am a very straightforward person. I say I'm finding the elephant in the room, and they finally got fed up with me finding the elephant in the room. They're like, Keenan, stop. I'm like, no, you said we got to do something. I'm telling you what's in the way. You don't like it?
Like your little video. Right?
Yeah. Yep. Yes. So thank you. So yes, I love that one.
What site is that to produce those videos?
All the little quick ones that I have for like a minute and a half. So I have a friend, you gotta love friends, who owns a production company. He is actually the production company behind Diners, Dash, and Dives with Guy Ferrieri, whatever his name is. Yeah. I went into his studio for a day. I put it on a teleprompter. I wrote like 5,000 words, put in all those little clips, shot 26 clips in a day, edited them all out, and dropped them once a week.
Wow, great.
There
Okay.
you go.
So anyway, basically, let's go with. To me, I think that there's some big trends that are coming. So one is that honesty is important. Like today, we've got frictionless karma, and so it's all about can you make your customers successful, and like you said, confronting reality. Like the more honest you are with yourself about what you are good at or not, or what you want, plus honesty with your team, and especially honesty with customers, both in your marketing, in your selling, in everything you do. So I think that's a common theme, or it could be a core premise. It's going to be in the book regardless. But the book is about how do you take what you're doing and grow faster? How do you triple your results, triple your business, or grow it by 10 times or double? So again, I think there's a lot of lessons from. There's a company called Zenefits, which is going from 1 million in revenue to 100 million in revenue in 2 years, which is crazy. But
Yep.
It's the same principles of what they're doing to what I've done. I grew my income by 10 times over the last 4 years. To if you're a $1 million startup and you're trying to get to 2 million or to 10 million, a lot of the principles are the same. And I could list them out. I don't know if you remember 5 things, but basically there's these 5 sections of the book. The first of which is the one we talked about around patience, giving yourself enough time, and it's like the entrepreneur's journey. That's just the first section.
Okay.
So I find that, again, time and again, these companies where if you're giving yourself the right goals and the right time and letting yourself just go through the journey is the first step. The second step is nailing a niche.
Okay, so real quick on that one, I like this one. I want to ask this question before, because I think this is important. When you're an entrepreneur, I don't care how badass you are, I don't care how brave you are, we all know it's an emotional roller coaster, right? We're always looking for something to tell us we're heading in the right direction, right? It's kind of like having a compass.
Failing. yeah,
that we're not failing. It's kind of like owning a compass and some asshole with a magnet in his hand walks by you every 6 hours, right? And you don't know, shit, it just said left. Was it the magnet, or is it really, am I really going the wrong direction, right? So here's the question. Are there things that you can do? Are there metrics? Are there things you can put in place to say, hey, you're heading in the right direction, you're doing the right thing, so it's not where you want to be, but look at this, right? Or is it just all over and you just got to have faith?
Well, it's a little bit of everything. I mean, there are some things you can do. So, for example, and not so much in the book, but it's always so important to have a circle of supporters who can not only give you advice in terms of, hey, do this, do that, but also give you emotional support. That could be friends, family, coworkers. So that's incredibly important. Doing anything alone is just so hard.
Oh,
now, I will say it's frequently if you're like an individual starting a business, whether it's software or coaching, sales guy, a lot of times your friends and family will be the dream killers. So don't be afraid to love your parent but not listen to them about your business or their concerns. Or you can listen to them but not take in their concerns because they're afraid for you. Like, you're not going to have an income, you're not going to do this. So you got to sort of be aware of who really your true supporters are and try not to take criticism in too personally. That's one. Now, I think in faith, of course, you always have to believe in yourself. Even though you won't always believe in yourself, you will doubt yourself, but that's different between giving up. So there's sort of this core of commitment. You got to be persistent to get through the ups and downs, believing in yourself, having confidence in yourself. I think so. Okay, so I think 2 things that make a difference too. One is if you let's say you're going to start a business. One is mentally saying, I am going to start a business. Because I think a lot of people mentally are thinking, well, maybe I'll do one, someday I'll do one. And I feel like at least for me, there's a big internal shift between, yeah, I think I could start a business, or, whoa, wouldn't that be nice? And I'm going to start a business. I don't know when, or I don't know what it'll be, but I am going to start a business. So that's one. It's like an internal decision. And what you'll find is that if you're new to this, if you do that, you'll start to see ideas. So first you decide to start a business, and then the ideas will come. That's one. But in the book, more importantly, I think, is, for example, you have to expect that for your journey, which I don't think you can define by sort of amount of money or this or that, but you should be expecting to work on your thing for 10 years. For whatever kind of definition of success or before you're ready to move on, it's probably more like a 7 to 10 year journey to be. I mean, I've been working on this for probably about 10 years. give or take, in bits and pieces. Again, not full time, but the whole journey is. This is probably about 10 years so far, like 9 years, 8 years. I'm in that range. Now I still you can always. I have much bigger aspirations. Like now I've merged where we have a software company. We're doing other things, but I think you have to expect like 7 to 10 years. And I hope that helps in some ways in terms of if you've been at something for 3 years and you still feel like it's struggling, that's pretty natural. And in the sense of it, I hope it helps with people relaxing. Hey, I'm not doing something wrong. Lots of people go through this and still struggling at 3 years or 5 years or even 6 years or 7 years.
Okay. I think what happens is we see the media of those companies blowing up, and we just assume they did that shit overnight. Like Slack is a good example. Everybody's talking Slack. If you peel back the layer, they were just, I don't say wallowing, but they were just doing really nothing, just sitting in there doing their thing for a long time.
Like 5 years. They had like 5 years of crap.
Yes, competing with Yammer and competing with HipChat and all that other stuff and really going nowhere, and then boom. So I see your point. I think the message here that I'm taking is you got to focus on yourself. Don't look at what you see outside because you don't know the whole truth, and just know that if you believe it, go with it.
Yeah, it's everyone compares and despairs, and it will crush. It just makes everything harder unnecessarily. Because look, the media loves sort of the overnight successes and overnight failures. By the way.
Yeah, good point.
Regular success isn't interesting to most people. Like we want the overnight success, but yeah, Slack. It's been 5 or 6 years of struggle before they had a breakthrough. I mean, it's very common. Yeah, okay. If you sometimes once in a while people have like an overnight success, like a true one, but that's so rare that you can't. It's like you can have that kind of a goal, but again, not expect it. And there's a big difference emotionally between those two things.
That's good. I like that. So we got someone on Twitter asking a question. So I think it's my boy Jack Kasikowski. Love that cat.
I forgot I've got a Thomas. That's my Thomas.
Dude, I love those little pillow pets. I love those. I got those all over my house. Okay, the question is, Aaron, what's your thoughts on the role that social should play when starting a company?
So when you're starting a company, most of your first customers will come from the people you know, friends and family and networks, which could include social. I'm not that big a social media person, but I guess I'm older. I hate to say it, but I find it more of a distraction. I like it, but so I think again, first customers come from your network. Social is one way to get it, and the challenge is you get your first 10 or 20 or 50 customers. There's some number of customers you get from your people you know and friends of friends, and then usually that dries up. So Jeffrey Moore called it the chasm. I don't know, I guess it's called the chasm, but there's this difference between getting customers through your networks and then figuring out how to go out and get them when they're unknown to, when they don't know you. The social could be, I think, most useful at the very early days, friends of friends, but as soon as you have tapped that out, it's going to be usually more of a distraction than a help. While you figure, and this is sort of section 2 of the book, is how do you nail a niche? How do you figure out where is your sweet spot? Where is that strength, that unique genius, where people, who your targets are, who needs you, like that you're a need, not a want or nice to have, and you know how to go out and talk to them in simple ways to get them interested. So once you, again, I work with lots of companies or lots of people who've read the book. Frequently they get to $1 million to $10 million in revenue. So these are software companies, and then they hit a wall. They plateau because they've tapped out all those networks, the people they know and their friends of friends, including social, and they then have to go out and figure out how to go out and reach out to people who've never known them. At that point, social is, I'd say, unless you sell social media stuff, probably a distraction.
Interesting. All right. So what would you say, wait, give us the third chapter of your book. What's the third chapter, the third section?
Okay, so first one is that sort of evil expectations. Second one is about nailing a niche. The third one is about predictable pipeline. So actually the chapter title, I'm actually doing these as painful truths. So the third chapter, the painful truth is, if you build it, they will come, is a fairy tale. Which means just because you build something really cool, incredible, doesn't mean anyone's going to come find it and buy it, except for your friends on Facebook. And then once they're done, they're done. So you need to find ways to go out and generate leads in a predictable way in order to drive your business. That's the third one. So it goes back, and a lot of that's about seeds, nets, and spears. If you've read the first book, I talked more about outbound in the first book. I touched on word of mouth, like seeds and nets. But the next book will go into more detail on all three. So how do you do outbound? How do you do inbound marketing? And how do you do word of mouth marketing? Which really, to me, is about creating a system for customer success. How do you systematically bring customers on and then make them successful so they would want to tell their friends, or at least give you case studies and testimonials? Right. So that's the third one is predictable lead generation.
So I love this one. So I'm going to let us go over a little here. What's your method? Share a little bit, dig a little deeper, go a layer down. So how do you create a system or methodology that's repeatable around referrals and references, or creating that constant predictable lead? I love that. How do you do that?
Okay. Well, first, there's a free ebook. I don't know if you can give people a link, but predictable revenue.
We did.
Yeah. Okay.
Did we do it? Is it on?
Yep.
So there's the original book, Predictable Revenue, which is on Amazon. And then there's it's a free ebook. It's like a prelude to the next full book, but it's called The Predictable Revenue Guide to Tripling Your Sales. So I'll give you, it's just predictablerevenue.com/triple.
People can see it right now, can they not, Kiki? And they can click on it right now. So if they're watching, they can get it.
Yeah. So I'll give you some tips, but that has a lot more detail on seeds, nets, and spears. So word of mouth or customer success, and inbound marketing and outbound. But I think, again, let's assume that most of the people here watching are earlier stage companies, could be consultants, individuals, or even if you're in a company. So customer success, and this goes back to how important it is to be honest with yourself and honest with your customers, which means, think about your company or you as an individual are all about how can you find the right customers, sell them the right things, and help them get value out of it. So in the past, I think, again, this is an age change around. In the past, a lot of salespeople would find prospects and sell them stuff regardless of whether that customer needed it or not.
Mm-hmm.
And again, if the customer failed, who cared, because no one could find out about it, because what are they going to do? Do a letter campaign to their friends? It's a very slow word of mouth. Today, there's Twitter and email and Facebook. It's very easy for customer failures or customer successes to get out. And and plus with this, if you're in subscription, there's a lot of recurring revenue models now. And of course, if a customer's not happy, they can leave. It's not always that easy to leave, but they still can leave. So there's a lot of reasons why there's an incredible incentive to be honest at the beginning, middle, and end with customers, and also with yourself about who the right people are and so on. So customer success, find the right customers, sell them the right thing, and help them get value out of it. And usually what happens is companies, I'm going to switch to a company like a Silicon Valley company, often wait too long in order to put dedicated people on that function. So let's say it's a software company might hire 10 salespeople and one customer support person or one customer success person, when in reality, customer success is an investment in revenue growth. Customer success is not about making customers happy. It's about driving revenue growth. Because if your customers are happy, they're going to stay with you, plus you'll get better case studies and testimonials. So again, usually we tell people invest faster in creating a dedicated function of customer success where they can help figure out exactly the best way, who the right customers are, how to set their expectations appropriately during the sales process, and then get them launched and getting value out of the product once they're signed up.
So that customer service person, as you see it, is huge.
Huge, yeah. It's a much bigger and better investment than sales, or at least it's imbalanced. So, there's lots of. This is why in the ebook there's different ways people do customer success, and there's a lot more tips on if you have high-end customers or small. But I think really putting a focus on making your customers successful, which can include them. So part of that is, are you finding the right customers, setting expectations correctly? Also, if they're getting value out of what you do they even realize it? They may not know, because if an executive buys something and as people are using it, like they may have no idea. People just don't. Sometimes they don't know, and it may come up in a year that it's time to renew, and it's, I don't know, say $20,000 a year, and they're like, what do we get out of it? And then like, we're not sure. They can still cancel. So there's a lot of steps along what you can do with selling, marketing, selling, buying, and supporting to make sure that your customers are happy and they know it.
Dude, love it. Completely on that one. They don't even know they're getting the value. I work with clients a lot of time, and I'm like, do they know they can do this? Or are they aware this is happening? Or did they see this? Like, I don't know. I'm like, well, it's your job to make sure they get all the value. You can't wait for them to figure it out. So that's
exactly.
Love that point. Okay, so last question, but rather than make it a question, I'm going to flip the script. What do you decide, what is it you think a small to medium-sized SaaS startup, so anywhere from each 1 and 10 million, then that phase, should focus on? Or is there something else, some wisdom you want to drop that I haven't gotten to, asked, or we don't know about?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to come back to, I mentioned nailing a niche, because I do think that in those early stages, especially once, and they see the problem is when they start to try to do some kind of outbound prospecting or outbound marketing and it doesn't work. The reason is because you've when you start out and you're using your networks, you get a lot of extra trust and attention for free. Because when you pitch your friend, you tell your friend Bob about your product, he'll sit there and talk to you for an hour about it because he's your buddy, and so on. And so when you grow organically that way, you're not forced to really crystallize and clarify who's your best customer, why do they need it, and so on. And so there's this painful process that everybody goes through, where companies get started, they're marathon runners, and they just said, all right, now we're going to go bigger, we're going to do Ironman. And they wonder, okay, why do we struggle with biking and swimming? Well, because you've never done it. Same thing with these companies, they're 1 to 10 million, and consultants as well. You can do everything well, but when you try to sort of tell everybody, here's all the things we can do, you just confuse them. So first, it's about by really focusing in on the 1 or 2 things that you do the best, because you need to make it simple for prospects to understand who you are and why they need you. And they can't do that if you're saying, we can do these, here's this whole menu of buffet we can offer you. So pick like 1 or 2 things. For me, years ago I was doing sales consulting. Yeah, I could help with, the team and pipeline and prospecting and closing, blah, blah, blah. It's just too confusing. And I focused on my unique genius here, which is sort of outbound prospecting in the consulting and software we do. With software companies, it's like, well, anyone can use this. Finance people in the U.S. and it's like, where have you had the easiest success, made the biggest difference, and made the most money? And focus just on that as a priority. And it's hard for people to focus in on 1 or 2 key things they do because they feel like, well, we're missing out on all these other 10 things we could help people with. Yeah, but you're just gonna confuse people. And you can when you have an hour when Bob comes over and you can sit down for an hour and you can go through that laundry list of stuff you can do. Sure, but you can't do that with sort of colder outbound marketing or prospecting. They only give you a few seconds or a minute or 2 minutes. So you gotta make it short and sweet. So that may not be. Maybe that's a week to figure it out. It may be several months or a year, but that's the place where I see those early stage companies, whether it's probably 0 to 10 million, struggle. And it's like if you can figure that out, then that is what you need in order to make any kind of lead generation effort much more effective and much more predictable and sustainable.
Okay, so you just hit on something I lied because you bumped into something and I want to get your thoughts on that I think is critical, that I think is lost in all the discussion. When you talk about finding the niche, I wrote a blog post about 2 years ago that said product has now surpassed sales. And what I said was, as you kind of referenced earlier, back in the day, sales led revenue. I could sell somebody something they didn't need, or if I had a deficient product, I could oversell that product because there wasn't a way for the buyer to know any better, right? Yeah. So I could get a deficient product into a customer, and the product team could fill it later and make the changes. When people started complaining, like, yeah, we fixed it, look, it's better now.
Yep.
That's flipped. The product now leads, and if you have a shitty product or the product isn't strong enough for a niche or the MVP is not high enough, your sales team cannot save you. So how do you what would you say to organizations that have sales and product a mile away from each other, and they're not really focused on, it's not just selling to a niche, but can my product deliver on the niche? How is my product reacting to the market?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So first, I do think there's a lot of confusion. I think people see Slack and they see Instagram or they see Dropbox, and it's like, whoa, if you just got to get a product that sells itself. Like, no, first of all, that's bullshit. There are companies who hit like the lottery through hard work. It's not for free. I mean, but most companies, even if you have a great product, you still have to sell and market it, because word of mouth can help, but it's not going to get you to where you want to go alone. Very rare. Even Dropbox and all these companies have big sales teams, or they will. Slack. I think there's some Twitter like, oh, maybe it's the first company that doesn't need salespeople. I'm like, every company will always add salespeople because it's a great investment for lots of reasons. Anyway, they can be your most valuable employees for a lot of reasons. When you're selling the right stuff to the right people, and helping them. So in my mind, it's not even about product versus sales. It's realizing that, going back to lead generation, seeds, nets, and spears. So word of mouth, which is if you have a great product, you'll get more of it. That will be a good, hopefully a useful driver of your business, but not the only one. And you need to complement that with effective and clear marketing, however that works for you, whether it's by content, by PPC, by events, and complement that with targeted outbound prospecting, which again could be for certain channel partners. It could be sort of broad-based, just for companies. It could be for if you production partners. So it's understanding these different ways, different types of leads that drive growth, and the pros and cons of each, and what the right mix is for your business. So I think when people make these assumptions like, we don't need sales because our product is going to sell itself. No. It's like you can rely on product, but you need to complement it with the right kinds of marketing or the right kinds of sales in order to get the growth that you want. And it's being smarter. Stop making these broad generalizations that like sales bad, product good, or product bad, sales good. It's like, no, that doesn't make sense. Like, cupcakes aren't bad, and salad isn't good. It's like for some people you need more salad, and some people probably need more cupcakes. Like, who are you? Like, what do you need for your business? And in a birthday party, salad is bad, cupcakes are good, right? So
that's the best one yet.
People make these mental shortcuts, which I understand why they help and feel good, but they're not. They mislead you and distract you from what's really going to help you with your business. So I think the next book is trying to give people a roadmap, which is here are some simple ideas, which generally for almost everybody have been true and people struggle with. And how do you think about how do you put the time in, focus, generate leads, grow sales, and deal with people, and like give people a real sort of Silicon Valley recipe for growth.
Okay, good stuff. I like that. I'm gonna remember that. Someone's got to tweet that because I can't do it fast enough. At a party, a salad is bad. And where is a cupcake bad? When you're dieting, cupcake's bad.
Well, anyway, it's like at a birthday party, salad's bad, cupcakes are good.
Yes,
but,
that's
regular, even there's a lot. That's a whole complicated. That's a whole nother show around emotional issues with people and emotional eating, where cupcakes and salad are not as simple as you might think.
Yeah, there you go. That was good. All right. All right, my man. Thank you so much. We are moving to the next part of our show. You're here. We'll talk about this in a second. But something we do here at the end of this is we call it Cut It Out. And it's where I address something that salespeople, sales leaders, people are doing that's just flat out wrong. So, Kiki, what is our Cut It Out today? Do you remember? I remember. What is it, sister?
I'm just calling to follow up.
Yes. I'm just calling to follow up. Ring, ring. Hey, this is Jim. Hey, Jim. This is Aaron Ross. We spoke last week. I'm just calling to follow up. Follow up on what? Yeah, I had dinner. No, I just took a shit. No, I went to the park with my kids. What are you calling to follow up on? Really? People, we're busy, okay? I'm busy. Aaron's busy. Kiki's busy. If you're trying to sell something, or if we've even talked, and you know my world or you know our world, don't call just to follow up. We don't have time for follow up. We don't have time to be wasted. You need to know exactly why you're making that call, and here's $1 million piece. What value? V for value. What value is that call bringing? If you got to call me because I didn't meet my commitment to call you back, or you sent me stuff and I haven't responded on it, or I didn't do what I said I was going to do, okay, I own that, but don't call to follow up. Call up and say, hey, you said we were going to do this and it hasn't happened. Has something changed? Can I get you something new? Can you tell me what is going on so I can do something different? Bring me something. Hey, I noticed you didn't follow up on the research. Can I get it to you easier? Here's something new that might help you. Give me something. Don't waste my time with following up and I'm checking in. People, cut it out. It's old. It's tired. Enough. Drop is right. Well done, Kiki. Does that not drive you insane, Aaron?
Well said. Yep. No, I think you're right on. It's, like you said, give me something useful. And I think one of the things I heard, which I believe in, is helping reduce guilt. Right? You said, hey, didn't get back to you. Can I make it easier on you in some way?
Yes. Well, we're busy. Look, my girl Jill Conrad. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Jill.
Sure.
She wrote a phenomenal book, Snap Selling. She was on the show a little while back. Her letter to a salesperson is one of the best things I've ever read. It's a make-believe letter to a salesperson about how busy sales executives are. So if you haven't got the book, get the book. If you've got the book, once a month, go read that letter. It's in the first chapter, I think. And it'll remind you how busy we are and how foolish you look when you call to just follow up. Oh, my God. So with that, do we have any other questions, Kiki, for folks, for Aaron, as we end this glorious session? This was the bomb.
No. The only other thing, Jack Kozakowski has a personal favor, Aaron. He wants some feedback on a new ebook. I'll send you the link.
All right.
That's with him.
I can give some feedback. I just can't promise how quickly I'll give it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like read the book and then feedback.
But I appreciate it's like if I was reaching out for help, I'd want someone to at least acknowledge it. So I try to do my best to do that for people who ask.
Well, thank
Would be
you.
interesting. Jack's a good cat too. So, Aaron, my man, I really, really enjoyed this. I will make sure that you have my contact info and I have yours. And the next time I am in San Fran, we've got to have a beer and talk about this adoption thing.
Los Angeles. No.
Oh, even better! I love LA.
Yeah.
Even better. I like visiting. I don't like living. I couldn't live there. People are a little crazy, but that's a whole different story.
That's right, we are. No. There's a lot of good people here, but there's lots of crazy people. I think that's true of most places and big cities. Maybe not the heartland, but.
Yeah, true.
For
True.
sure,
Yes.
For sure, San Francisco, and for sure, LA, and for sure, New York, without a doubt.
True. I'm from Boston and live in Denver now, so I don't know. That's a whole
fewer. Yeah, I think the crazy ratio is fewer in those cities.
But
Okay.
we have legalized dope, so give it 5 or 6 years, and that could.
You never know. I think there's lots of people in Silicon Valley, especially parents, who could use it to relax.
And I'd love to talk to you about adoption in your kids. That would be awesome. So thank you, my man. I appreciate it. Our next show, people, is going to be another great one. It is going to be in 2 weeks, and it is Chris Brogan. So we are coming back to back with some fat-ass, chili, sweet boss guests. So thank you, Aaron. And next week, y'all, we will see Chris Brogan. Until then, bust it, make it real, and get to your number. Peace. I'm out.
Thanks, guys.
Just chill to the next episode.